This map of the 18th century Indian subcontinent shows a landscape in total flux. The Mughal Empire was in decline, and Maratha power was expanding into the vacuum. For regional rulers, the environment was unforgiving. One lapse in strategic judgment meant the erasure of a kingdom. Maharaja Surajmal of Bharatpur stood apart from this cycle of constant warfare. While others relied on raw numbers and cavalry charges, Surajmal prioritized intellect and timing, treating the chaos as a series of moves to be calculated. He approached the volatile political landscape not as a battlefield, but as a chessboard, engineering a state built to withstand the pressures of both the fading Mughals and rising Marathas. In an era where many relied on the sword alone, Surajmal demonstrated that a ruler who outthinks his opponents can achieve a level of security that brute force cannot match. Surajmal's primary rule of statecraft was simple: you cannot negotiate or project power from a position of physical vulnerability. To solve this, he oversaw the construction of Lohagarh Fort in Bharatpur, a structure defined by massive stone walls and a wide, deep defensive moat. This schematic reveals the wall's unique engineering. By reinforcing stone with incredibly thick layers of packed mud, the barrier absorbed the kinetic energy of traditional artillery cannonballs instead of shattering. This made direct assaults ineffective, proven when the fort later repelled heavy British bombardments. Lohagarh fundamentally changed the calculus of war in the region. Because an enemy could not simply blast through the walls, they were forced to abandon the idea of a quick siege, giving Surajmal the leverage to demand terms from opponents who realized a military victory was impossible. Surajmal's external strategy was one of extreme agility. This network map shows how he shifted alliances between the Mughals, Marathas, and regional powers based on immediate needs. That strategy was tested in 1761 at the Third Battle of Panipat, where the Maratha forces, once a dominant node, were decisively defeated. The aftermath was a period of extreme vulnerability for the retreating Maratha forces. Most regional powers, seeing a defeated giant, withheld support to avoid the wrath of the victors. Surajmal took a different path. He chose to offer the fleeing Maratha survivors shelter, medical supplies, and protection within the borders of Bharatpur. Providing aid to a defeated force was a calculated move in regional influence. It signaled that Surajmal was not just looking at his own borders, but was positioning Bharatpur as a stabilizing force in the long-term geopolitical landscape of India. Surajmal recognized that external security was only half of the equation. A fort is only as strong as the society it protects. He turned his attention to internal administration, focusing on the protection of citizen property and the enforcement of a consistent rule of law to ensure his territory's economic health. This stability allowed for a flourishing of culture. The Deeg Palace, shown here reflecting in its own pools, resulted from his patronage of arts, serving as a physical testament to the state's wealth. By the end of his reign, Surajmal had balanced the three pillars of power: the defensive shield of Lohagarh, the diplomatic agility of his alliances, and the civic stability that allowed his people to prosper. On December 25, 1763, the great Maharaja Surajmal died in a fierce conflict on the banks of the Hindon River. Many neighboring kingdoms of that era fragmented immediately upon the death of their leader. However, the administrative foundations Surajmal had established, including the tax structures, the standing army, and the legal codes, were robust enough to remain intact without his direct command. Bharatpur did not collapse. It remained an organized and significant political power, maintaining its reputation for military and administrative strength well into the period of British expansion. His legacy is still visible today in the physical monuments he built, from the unbreached walls of Lohagarh to the architectural heritage at Govardhan. Because kingdoms and empires are often temporary, but a state built on defensive engineering, measured diplomacy, and civic stability leaves a mark on history that lasts for centuries. That is the story of Maharaja Surajmal.